It's been so long, I forgot how to turn it up, all night long. Oh, up all night long. You, where the hell did you come from? You're a different kind of fun. And I'm so used to feeling numb. Now, I got pins and needles on my tongue, anticipating what's to come, like a finger on a loaded gun. I can feel it rising temperature inside me, haven't felt it for a long time. This is my heartbeat song and I'm gonna play it. Been so long I forgot how to turn it up all night long. Oh, up all night long. This is my heartbeat song and I'm gonna play it. Turned it on, but I know you can take it up all night long. Oh, up all night long. I wasn't even gonna go out, but I never would have had a doubt if I'd known where I'd be now. Your hands on my hips and my kiss on your lips, so I could do this for a long time. This is
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Natali, and I'm Executive Director for the American Heart Association, and we are so pleased to welcome you to today's Circle of Red experience, Coffee with the Doc. Today, we also want to hear from you. So after our discussion, let's set aside some time to answer your questions. Below, you know how to use the chat box probably by now, but click your questions right in there. We have Lisa, who's going to be taking care of the chat box for us today and reading off any questions later. Today is also National Wear Red Day. So it's a National Icon Day dedicated to encouraging everyone to support the fight against heart disease in women. So today people wear red, and throughout the month, businesses and downtown buildings around Buffalo and Rochester light up red. And even tonight, Niagara Falls is going to light up red to celebrate with us as well. So show us how you're going red today by sharing your photos on social media. Use hashtag Wear Red Day and tag AHA New York on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, feel free to use the hashtags Go Red Buffalo or Go Red Rock. Now, we're also grateful for all of our Circle of Red members who are joining us here this afternoon. I want to take a quick moment to recognize our newest Circle of Red members, Christina Tobin, Dr. Lori Clamo, Jill Niddle, and Kathleen Wheelahan. And we are so excited for our newly formed Men Go Red, made up of guys who honor women in their lives. And that group is led by Rick Serra, and we welcome our newest member, Jamie Yakaza. You can see a full list of members on any of our websites, and also we'd love to see how this group is growing. Thank you so much for being ambassadors for our cause. Now with that, I am pleased to welcome Buffalo Circle of Red Chair, Dr. Joanne Cobbler, cardiologist for Buffalo Medical Group. Welcome, Joanne.
Hi, thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much for being here today. This is always a fun day. You know, Dr. Cobbler, you've been such a longtime supporter of the American Heart Association, and this is kind of our kickoff to launching American Heart Month. And the conversation we've been having for since Go Red was formed about 17 years ago, and you certainly have been in the field for a long time, and just like we're trying to get the message out that this is not just a man's disease, right? It's the #1 killer of women, and it's 1 in 3 women actually die of cardiovascular diseases. And like we're saying now, 1 is just too many. So let's start off. Why do we see such a high rate amongst women?
Well, I think the things you're talking about is that women, what we've been doing over the past 17 years, I've been doing for over 30 years, is I think women in the past were felt not to have coronary artery disease. So all the studies, they would exclude women, and they felt that women did not have this. So it wasn't something that you would even be concerned about. And now it's coming to light. I mean, obviously women do have cardiovascular disease. So in the past, women were ignoring symptoms. Doctors were not paying attention to them. And we're bringing this to light. We realize that it's very important. And I think the more we realize this and the more we work on risk factors and symptoms, then we're going to see the decrease in the amount of cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, I think you said one of the key things that we usually hone in on is that women tend to ignore the symptoms, right?
Yes.
I mean, you see that a lot in your practice as well?
Yes. And I think, sometimes women are so busy taking care of their children, taking care of their spouses, working, trying to keep everything together, that they might notice that, maybe they're having some chest discomfort. They just kind of say, I don't have time to deal with this right now. It's nothing worrisome, or they're short of breath, or having palpitations, or maybe they're just more tired than usual. And being more tired, especially in women, being extremely tired and not able to do as much is a sign of coronary artery disease. So all those things are very important to pay attention to. And it's also important to seek medical attention. And sometimes women aren't taking this seriously. And we've been trying to teach the physicians as well that this is a disease of women.
Yeah, you mentioned, fatigue, being tired. Some of those can be easily just dismissed as, well, I might be coming down with a cold, or, I'm just running around, or I didn't have my coffee today, right? But people should know their body and what's different.
Absolutely. Right? And that's why I emphasize to women the importance of getting regular exercise, and really, having a low-fat diet, eating properly. If you have a regular exercise program, you're more likely to, I can always run a mile. I don't have any problems with this. Now I can't do as much. So those are the times where, those are important symptoms. And then basically you need to be evaluated more completely. But if you don't really do anything, if you're not exercising, you're very sedentary, you won't really know when you're having symptoms because you're not doing anything. And you can really miss it, and then suddenly you have a heart attack and you die. So it's very important to keep up the activity so that we know what's going on.
Right. So, what I find is that younger generations developing heart conditions. So in your practice, are you seeing this as well?
I'm sorry, you're kind of going in and out.
I'm sorry, Dr. Cobbler. We're seeing generations developing heart conditions. Do you see this in your practice? And what's your advice to young women?
I still miss one. You're seeing what? It went out. I'm sorry.
The fun of Zoom, right? Can you hear me?
Okay.
So I mentioned we're seeing younger generations developing heart conditions. So what's your advice to young women?
Well, again, the same type of thing is, I think we are seeing it earlier. And I think some of that is that we're seeing more sedentary lifestyles. We're seeing more obesity. So we're seeing diabetes at a younger age. So I'm seeing it in younger women. So basically the same type of things where it's exercise, diet, making sure you follow through with your doctor and not ignoring symptoms. But I think a lot of it is just again, the sedentary lifestyle we have. It's very important to get the exercise, keep your, being at the appropriate weight, watch your high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, get that under control. So those are all the things that are contributing to this.
Yeah, and we usually say 80% of cardiovascular disease can be prevented by those types of lifestyle changes, right?
Absolutely. That's the key thing. Every patient I see, that's what I'm asking them. Are you smoking? You need to stop if you are. What exactly are you doing for exercise? You want to do at least 150 minutes of cardio type exercise per week. And I tell them where you can barely talk, you're pushing yourself so hard. And then 2 or 3 days of strength training. Those are the minimum guidelines from the Heart Association. And that's very important because sometimes people are just, taking a little walk and they're strolling. Well, no, you got to do more than that. You really have to push yourself. And those are extremely important things. And I think when the younger generation is not doing these type of things, maybe they're more involved with, on the computer or things like this, then we're seeing heart disease develop earlier.
Great point. So one of the things that, the American Heart Association has made is a commitment to ensuring to eliminate health disparities, including racial, ethnic, gender disparities, in order to improve the overall health equity in our communities. So we're seeing a large disparity when it comes to Latina and African American women, where they're experiencing some of the highest rates of hypertension, diabetes, strokes, and just overall heart disease. From a clinical standpoint, why is this?
Well, I think it's lifestyle. It's getting the appropriate care, even having, you have to have, like we talk about disparities and where you were able to buy food. You got fresh foods, fresh fruits, vegetables, things like that, not having that. So I think in being able to, I have some patients who it's too dangerous to walk outside and exercise. So you can be limited by that. You can't walk to the grocery store. You don't have a Wegmans in certain areas, so you can't get the food easily. So there's things like that, and I think also getting the appropriate medical care and the appropriate medications, being able to afford the medications and following through with things.
Right. So it's more than just telling people you got to eat better and you got to exercise more, right? They have to have the access to all of these things. Right?
Exactly. And always paying attention. Like I'll ask, what do you have available? Okay, maybe they just have the stair. Okay, a stair is a great exercise. I mean, so we can talk about things. So you have to really pay attention to what's available to that patient. You can't just say, go for a walk. And they said, well, they're not going to tell me that they can't walk outside. No, it's too dangerous. I said, okay, well, let's think of some other things we can do. But you don't want to tell someone to do something when it's not available to them. So you really have to pay attention to each individual patient and where they're coming from, what's available, or what their foods are that they normally eat, and try to work within that to say what's healthier. Because they might have different food types than other people. So we got to think of what's healthy for them and talk to them exactly what they're eating. I'll go through a diet and say, what are you eating during the day? And then we can decide, okay, that food's not good. No, you got to cut back on this. But you have to really, in detail, go through with the patients.
Mm-hmm. And I think, when we talk about food, I think one of the biggest things that we see a correlation here is high sodium diets, right? Especially if you don't have access, or even just the regular American diet is really high in sodium and salt. So, that leads us, I guess, really quick to talk about blood pressure. It is amazing. I'm always staggered by this. 30% of adults across Rochester and Buffalo, age 18 or older, have been diagnosed with high blood pressure. That's over 600,000 people. I mean, that could fill the Buffalo Bills Stadium 9 times. I mean, it's crazy. And even more have not been diagnosed yet. So are you seeing that it's mostly diet leading to these high blood pressure rates? Or what is it that you're seeing as blood pressure as an indicator for heart disease?
Well, I mean, I'm seeing stress. Like I've been seeing a lot of younger, like lately, I'm seeing a lot of college age people that are coming to see me. It's more stressful now that they can't go to school. They're doing their work online. So I'm seeing them for high blood pressure, and I'm treating them for I mean, you're talking about 18 to 20 some year old people, and it's stress, and lack of exercise, and diet. And I think, and then, so I need to treat this at that stage, and then really work with them to work on the diet, their stress, everything, so that I'm not going to see them 5 years, 10, 20 years later with a heart attack. So it's definitely a problem. And I think, again, it's this inactivity, or like right now, it's very difficult with the pandemic and things being closed, and really talking to them, like, these are other options for you to do right now. Because sometimes they just can't think of what else they can do. The gym's closed, or, okay, well, you can do this instead. So we have to just be creative and think of other ways. And the stress people are under right now has been very difficult. These young people who have no outlet and they can't go to classes, and they're doing a chemistry lab online, they're completely stressed.
Yeah, we're actually, a recent survey showed that millennials have the highest perceived level of stress than any generation. But, this, Pat, you mentioned something, and we had a couple I just saw pop up in the chat box, and is actually a great lead into a next question. Because you mentioned this past year has taken a toll on everyone. And particularly we hear from women about trying to balance work from home, kids at home with school. You mentioned limited options for exercise and just a general increase in stress because of the uncertainty. So, and actually last week, the American Heart Association, we released a scientific statement that showed the link between mental health and cardiovascular disease. So let's talk about mental health during this time of COVID. And can you tell us what are the effects of stress?
Well, it certainly can increase the blood pressure. I mean, it's a constant stress on the heart. So you got more adrenaline, so it can affect the heart itself. But I think a lot of things are the blood pressure. Then people just tend to, if they're more stressed, they might not pay attention to things as much. They might not do the normal things that they normally do. So certainly it's definitely, affects the overall cardiac status.
Yeah, we see from, one of the interesting things that I pulled out from the scientific statement, which is, in our journals circulation, ahajournals.org. But one of the things that I pulled out was that they found that a positive perspective is actually really beneficial to your overall biological health and heart health. So really trying to take a bad situation or a challenging situation like the year 2020 maybe, and looking for those bright spots can actually help your biological condition. So, but we see that stress compounds things like type 2 diabetes, right? And obesity you mentioned, and things like that. So what are some of when you see a patient come in and they're highly stressed, what are the things that you look for and evaluate and help them to move beyond that?
Well, I certainly talk to them, try to figure out what the stressors are, see what I can do to help them with them. And like you said, move the focus. I mean, we talk about being gratefulness. Like I wake up and I say, my kids are alive. I woke up. Now my day's good. It's the most important thing is my kids are healthy. I'm alive, and now let's face the day and be grateful for that. And all these other things, it really doesn't matter. And I mean, I'm certainly it's stressful, but you have to have those good things in your heart and be grateful for them. And I think helping focus people on those things, and then giving them outlets, like maybe, counseling. There's a lot of online counseling, or making sure that I'm checking their blood pressure, try to relieve their stress. Say, okay, let me take care of your health. Like they're worried about the palpitations, chest pain, or things. And a lot of times, we do the testing and everything looks good. I can reassure them. So now their stress level goes down because I have to take away any stresses that I can take away. Like they're worried about their heart. Okay, well, let's test your heart. Okay, your heart looks good. You're not going to have a heart attack if you do this. Okay, stop checking your blood pressure. I will check it. I will get this controlled. I'll bring it back in a couple of weeks. Stop, because sometimes they're just checking it every 5 minutes and they're just getting more and more stressed. So I try to take as much as I can away from them. And then we keep working on things and bring them back and try to get them, okay, like I'm afraid to exercise. Okay, well, we just did a stress test. It's perfectly safe. Come back next week. You're going to do this and you'll come back. And, I talk to them like that and give them step-by-step ways to do things.
And some of the things that people stress over are just completely out of their control, right? So maybe focusing on what you can control is the key.
No, it's very important. And there's things where they're even thinking, I say, stop, turn off the news, stop reading stuff about COVID.
Well, it's just always there for us, right? I mean, we're living in such a unique time and digital age where everything's at your fingertips and there's conflicting information all over the place and news in every angle. So it is part of the advice, right? To maybe limit some of those things coming at you all the time, right?
Yes, because I'm finding that I don't even know where they're getting this information, but they're trying to tell me that they think they know everything. And they're telling me all these things about, well, I had COVID and it can cause this and cause that. And I'm like, okay, but you don't have that. So, we test them out and, and I don't know where you read that, but this is but reassuring. And I think the other issue is people being so afraid that they're not coming to see their doctor. This has been a huge thing. The death rate from cardiovascular disease has really gone up worldwide. It's skyrocketed and there's been decrease in patients coming in with acute stroke, with heart attacks. The cath angiogram labs have been empty. all over the world, because people are too afraid to go to the hospital with chest pain or a stroke. We spent all these years stressing how important it is to get immediate care, call 911. I mean, I've had patients call me with chest pain and refusing to come into my office, refusing to go to the hospital because the media had them, especially early on, the media had them so scared that they get COVID any place they go. So I'm finding that people haven't gotten treatments, they haven't had their blood pressure checked, they haven't gone to their doctor. People are missing chemotherapy treatments for their cancer. So we're seeing that fear is perfectly safe to go to the doctor. We know what to do. The hospitals are perfectly safe, but very important. We had like a 52-year-old woman who stayed home for 5 days with chest pain and finally came in. So, you know, the angiogram was done in 5 minutes because everyone's sitting around and not doing anything because no one's coming in. And they tried to do something, but she died a couple of days later, and that's it. I mean, this would have been chest pain, come to the hospital, we open up your artery and you go home, but she's dead. There was no reason for that other than her being so consumed with COVID, which is the chances of her getting COVID, the chances of her dying are so slim compared to what you're going to die from is your heart. So I think this has been a big wake-up call all around the world. There's just real concern about this. And now we're seeing people with more and more heart failure because they haven't come in. They're refusing to come in. It's very difficult. Finally, people are getting a little more confident, but you need to see your doctor. You need to follow through with all your appointments. And if you're having symptoms, get help right away.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, right in the beginning of the pandemic, March, April, May, I was getting calls from cardiologists across Rochester and Buffalo, neurologists, just in ambulance, just saying nobody's coming in. What heart attacks and strokes didn't stop? What's going on? And it really was based exactly like you said in that fear. So it's a great point to emphasize that, you know, if you are feeling any type of symptoms, any of those things, call 911. And get to the emergency room, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, I would love to just start checking. I see a lot of chat here going on, and a lot of really great questions on all kinds of other aspects of it. So I'd love to start kind of tapping into some of those. You know, we see a lot of other stressors, and a lot of the questions are definitely I think this emphasizes everybody's feelings, even now. One question is on financial health. So we know that financial stress is one of the biggest things in people's lives over the past, especially year. I mean, all the time because we all have credit card debt, student loans, or what have you, mortgages. But the past year has been even more challenging. So from a stressor standpoint, you know, financial health is one of those that we hear quite often. So being, you know, a physician, how do you address things like that?
Yeah, and being a physician, I definitely, and during this time, we understand the financial stress because we have been hit very hard, all the physicians. And so that's one thing we can relate to with our patients. And it's very difficult. I mean, I feel so bad for these patients, and anything we can do, we try to help them. But again, it's sort of refocusing and doing what you can do and helping these patients with that. But it's huge, the financial stress we've all been under. And it's amazing that, again, we sort of see some people who are just thriving and never made so much money in their life. Like the real estate people said, I can retire next year. Oh, that's nice.
There are certain industries that are doing okay.
Right, but I'm going to be working for 10 more years now. But it is very difficult. I think there's only so much we can do. And again, if looking for other options, but it's just there's nothing we can do. Like we do have options. We help people if they can't afford the medication. Sometimes the pharmaceutical companies can help you with that. But it's a definitely real thing, and that's adding to our overall stress with this time. And I don't know the answers to that because, you know.
Everybody's situation is different, right? I mean, but again, it's some things, you know, getting back to what are the things you can control and what are the things you can't control, prioritizing what's important. Like you said, medication. I know we've heard a lot of people stopping their medication during this time. And that's probably one of the things that is really important to emphasize too, is taking your medication.
Absolutely. Again, just being afraid, not getting the fill, not wanting to. Some people I've seen who have not left their house the whole time. And, you look at them and I'm just seeing them for prevention. They really don't have anything that would be a high risk. But they're listening and they're just constantly, and they're so stressed because they're listening to the media and they're just, it's too much. It's too much. So, yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah. But they definitely, it's so important. And again, pharmaceutical companies can help, but sometimes there's priorities on, I'm having people who are drinking tons of alcohol and they just think that's normal. Because it's a pandemic. Like, what do you mean I shouldn't drink 4 glasses of wine a night? Because they're seeing me because they have an irregular heart rhythm. They're in atrial fibrillation. I said, well, that's how much alcohol? And they look at me like, well, aren't we supposed to? I mean, I'm drinking, 4 or 5 glasses of wine a night. Well, that's what's wrong with your heart is the alcohol. So let's spend the money on the medications and not the alcohol. I mean, there's things like that going on where, again, it's just such a weird world we're living in right now. People are just, they're so stressed, they're not even thinking straight.
Yeah, and that, going back to the scientific statement on mental health and cardiovascular disease, that was actually one of the things that they assessed and showed that, challenging times and challenging parts of our lives, like the past year, led to less healthy behaviors, like more alcohol consumption, which leads to anxiety, stress, obesity. It leads to so many other downward things. But I think sometimes what we do as humans is we try to find those little outlets that give us some sense of, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Pleasure to say something in the moment, but we have to really understand the downward effects of some of those decisions, right? I mean, like four glasses of wine to unwind at night is too much, right? And we actually, the research says one per day for women and 2 per guys is like the absolute.
And that's a lot. I mean, even they should have less than that. Absolutely. But yeah, I think. And I'm noticing that some people, they just all of a sudden started eating. I've had people that gain 40 pounds, 30 pounds. Cholesterols are up. There's some who, they just realized it and now they're getting back on track. There's some people who took the time to really work and say, I'm absolutely not going to do that. I am not going to gain weight. I'm going to do this. They've been doing things like walking more. So that's what I gained from other patients, what they're doing. During this time and say, okay, well, these people are going for a walk. They're doing this. You can go here and try to think of things to have some outlet where you can get the activity and, other ideas for eating properly and forget the alcohol. So like you said, people are they're looking and then sometimes they find their way and now they're getting back on track. I couldn't handle it initially and now I'm figuring it out, but people need help with that.
And you know what? February is Heart Month. It's a great time to just hit the restart button and it's okay, right? I mean, acknowledge that it's okay that sometimes we fall off here and there, but the important thing is to acknowledge that and to try to make those even small improvements, right? Because doing too much at one time isn't really feasible for most people,
right? I always tell them take a little piece at a time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So, Dr. Kabler, I just got a question in here that is, can you speak more to the signs of a heart attack for women that are different than what men experience?
I mean, a lot of the symptoms are similar and just they're not paid attention to as much. But as I said, like you can hit chest pressure with exertion, a squeezing sensation on your chest, shortness of breath. Sometimes it can be in your neck or your upper arm. For women, particularly excessive fatigue, that's something that's specific to women. Sometimes they might have different types of chest pain. It may not seem like the usual chest pressure. Palpitations can be heart problems, but palpitations can also be just normal anxiety. So those are all things that need to be sorted out. But I'm finding that a lot of times people are saying that the symptoms are so different in women, but a lot of times the symptoms aren't paid attention. That if you listen, they just said that chest pressure, all that's just because you're stressed. But no, it is your heart. So it's just ignored more, even though they are similar. But there are some different things that I look for. And again, it's that excessive fatigue. And sometimes a woman might be describing a chest pain. But, I got this really sharp thing here, and I'm so worried about it. But when I go up the stairs, I have this pressure sensation. It's not too bad. I don't care about the sharp pain. It's that pressure sensation when you're walking up the stairs. Sometimes within all the stuff they're telling me, I'll find what I need to hear. So those are the type of things. Or just lack of exercise tolerance. You can't do what you did before. That's extremely important. And that's one that's brushed away the most. Because they'll say, I'm too stressed. I'm just tired. I'm just getting older. Well, there's no difference. There's no reason why you couldn't do as much. So that's an extremely important one that I see a lot that's ignored, and it's a lot in women.
Yeah, and I think also we get a lot of questions about as women age and your bodies change and menopause, all of that. Are there different recommendations for women that are maybe over the age of 55 from an exercise, from a routine side, from just a physician relationship side?
No, I mean, the exercise recommendations are the same. And even if you're 70 years old and never exercised, if you start exercising, you're going to get incredible gains from that. You still benefit from that. It's never too late. You can still reset and do great. There's really no different recommendations. I mean, obviously, if you're having joint problems, you don't want to be like, I don't jump anymore and do things like that, because if I've hurt my knee now or something, then I'm not going to be able to do as much. So you just have to modify things, but it's still the same thing. You find a cardio type exercise that you're able to do. It may not be running anymore because maybe your back's bothering you, but you can certainly, but you have to do it where you can barely talk. It's not a stroll. You can still do that and do some type of weightlifting, strength training, resistance bands. So those are all the same no matter how old you are, but you would modify it depending on if you're having problems with your joints or whatever. If you're 90 and you can still run, that's great. Or if you can still row, like on the rowing team, we've had people, they're in their 80s or something. If you can still do it, that's great. If your body can handle that, that's great. Nothing with your heart. Your heart's fine as long as been evaluated. But it's the same recommendations to continue to do things, but maybe modify for joint problems.
And we see a lot of people really turning to meditation because it's something that pretty much anybody can do, right? I mean, it's not a physical exertion, but it's more of a mental type of routine. So is that something that you see more in your patients, or something you would recommend?
I guess I'm so busy. I mean, they're not talking. I guess I have some patients who are sad. Maybe I think the patients that are coming to me are already stressed, and I'm trying to calm them down. And other things, but so some patients maybe that helps. There are certain, like there's meditation apps, or there's one that's Calm app that you can get on your phone. So certainly those all help. And those are all part of if that helps you relax and center yourself, that's very important. If it's physical activity, a lot of times it's the physical activity that helps with the emotional stress as well. I mean, I need them to do the physical work. I don't want them to sit there and meditate all day. I mean, that's great, but your heart's not going to do well. If you have an obese person who exercises and a thin person who does not exercise, the thin person will have a heart attack, not the obese person. Your heart, you need to exercise. So again, meditation is great if it's helping your stress. But, you need the physical activity still.
Yeah, because, a lot of times what it is when you're under constant stress, your body is just constantly creating that cortisol that builds up in your body, and it leads to that insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, all of that stuff, right? So it's that physical outlet of exercise that is why it's so beneficial to get rid of that, cortisol in your body, so you're not storing your sugar is fat and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, and also it conditions the heart, keeps it. Your heart needs to be conditioned. It's a muscle that you need to use. If you're in good condition, when you get up and do something, your heart rate will not jump up. Like if you never do anything, and maybe you have to walk someplace or you have to do some physical activity, all of a sudden your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up because you're so deconditioned. So that's a bad stress on your heart. If you're conditioned, the heart rate does not go up. Your blood pressure does not shoot up when you have any physical exertion. Or if you're under a stressful situation, it's not going to go up as high because you've got it conditioned. So those are the acute stresses on your heart, is the blood pressure shooting up and the heart rate going up, which you help when you condition your heart by exercise.
Right. You know, I just mentioned type 2 diabetes, and we just had a question in here. Are type 1 diabetics more prone to cardiovascular disease than type 2, or is it the same for both?
It's both a high risk. I don't know if they compared them side by side, but type 1 is a genetic problem where type 2 is preventable. It's completely self-made disease, is type 2 diabetes. It's a sedentary lifestyle, overeating. You do that, you create that yourself. So I don't know there might be studies that looked at the difference, but they're both high risk. But the problem with the type 2 is that you can stop it, you can reverse it, you can get rid of it by exercise, diet, a healthy lifestyle. So again, that's totally created by the person.
Yeah, and totally reversible. You mentioned sedentary, and we're all finding ourselves kind of sitting more during the day, actually, as we're back-to-back Zoom meetings and Zoom fatigue. What suggestions do you have for people to really break up their day when they're sitting so much more?
Get up and walk around in between, and make sure you're, and you should still prepare your food, and don't just go and snack on it. If you're home, make sure you're still preparing your foods like you would normally do. You get everything ready at the beginning of the week, make sure all your food's planned out, you have stuff. Don't just walk around and find something every day, because then you're going to pick on snacks. Make sure you've got meals planned out for yourself and healthy foods. And, in between, there's all kinds of things. Even if you had a treadmill, you want 150 minutes of cardio type exercise per week, but you can do it in 10-minute segments. It doesn't have to be like an hour a day. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes. You can do 10 twice a day. You can do 10 3 times a day. So those type of activities and making sure you're getting up and moving around, very important. But again, throughout the day, you can do different types of exercise and stretching and in between things.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of people think they need that dedicated time for an hour, 2 hours sometimes to exercise, but it's throughout the day. It's when you can. So when you're sitting here, after this, take a walk for 10 minutes, grab a healthy snack, water, make sure you're drinking a lot of water, right? We're sitting.
Is very important. That's probably the biggest thing I tell patients, and how much better they feel. I think the biggest thing I prescribe is water. You want to drink at least half your body weight in ounces of water every day. And if you do exercise that day, you need to do another 20 ounces. And it's not coffee as a diet. Coffee gets rid of fluid. So if you're drinking anything with caffeine in it, you need to make.
So my quadruple espresso here is probably not the okay.
So then you need to drink more water because you had that. Alcohol gets rid of fluids. So, people say, well, I'm drinking iced tea all day. Well, that's very bad, because that's just you diuresed, you got rid of all the water with that, and plus it's caffeine. So basically, no, they need to stop that. And you got to limit the caffeine, again, because it increases your heart rate. It also you get dehydrated with it. So, but the water it's amazing how much better people feel when they finally drink the water. I think that's the biggest difference I see when I'm taking care of patients, especially people with palpitations, sometimes shortness of breath. The water makes a huge difference when they finally, and I tell them you measure it out every day. Because if people say, oh, I drink a lot, I carry it with me all the time. I don't know what that means, carrying it with you. But I have my water bottle here. I have it filled up. I make sure I make it through that. I still have another one. This is the other one I have. And I make sure I drink this and that whole bottle before I leave here. Sometimes I'm leaving here and I go, oh, I got to drink it all. I'm like, oh, that really hurts. Afterwards. And then I have 2 big glasses in the morning before I come, but it makes a huge difference. But I come in with it because I don't have to go. It's too hard. I'm seeing patients and I'm not going to go find the water here. I know that I've measured it out and I have to drink through it.
Yeah, and you're prepared. You're organizing in advance to make sure that you're going to get that throughout the day. You know, you
Exactly.
mentioned something about palpitations, and we had a question come in here about AFib. We're seeing a lot more people experiencing AFib, and especially with women. Can you talk a little bit about AFib, what it is, and how do you know if you are experiencing atrial fibrillation?
Atrial fibrillation is an irregular rhythm coming from the upper chamber of the heart. So it beats irregularly and it doesn't contract normally. So a blood clot could form, break off, and cause a stroke because it's not having the normal pumping action. And your heart can beat very fast with that. So you might have palpitations. Some people don't have any sensation of it. It's definitely triggered by alcohol. So I'm seeing a lot more because people are drinking more. So that's why we're probably seeing more. It also can be caused by sleep apnea. Coronary artery disease can cause it. Just as we get older, you'll see it. High blood pressure will cause it. Thyroid problems cause it. And it's something that we want people, again, if you feel your heart beating fast and irregular, that could be atrial fibrillation. So it's important to get that checked out. Not drinking enough water. And then having a lot of caffeine or energy drinks. I'll see young people with that. But there's a holiday heart syndrome where someone goes out drinking and they wake up with it, and that's triggered by the alcohol. So it's very important, especially as you get older, the risk of stroke goes up. So we need to put patients on as they get older, and depending on if they have diabetes, they need to be on a blood thinner, a full blood thinner, where not just an aspirin, like Xarelto or Coumadin or Eliquis, things like that. To prevent a stroke. But if you're diabetic or you have high blood pressure, there's a lot of criteria we look at as to when you need to be on the blood thinner to prevent a stroke. A younger person having it periodically, you don't need to be on a blood thinner. But again, they're probably triggering that from their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And normally, is it just a feeling of fluttering? Is it like what can people tend to experience in symptoms that they would say, hey, this isn't right, it may be AFib, I gotta really take care of this?
Sometimes they just feel really uncomfortable and they're jumpy, and it's just because it's going irregular and fast, and just I'm not sure what's going on. It's just I'm so uncomfortable. And then they can take their pulse and it's irregular. If they feel their pulse, they can feel that it's irregular. They can feel it going fast, or like they ran a marathon and like they didn't do that. Some people have no symptoms at all. Other people, especially if you have other heart problems, you might start getting short of breath. You might start going into heart failure, having swelling in your legs because your heart can't keep up when the rate's going that fast. So you develop heart failure, which goes away once you get the heart rate down, then it improves. So you could feel short of breath. If it's really going fast and maybe your blood pressure is low, you could pass out. You can, again, feel a fluttering sensation or just feel it going fast. Those are the type of things that a lot of people experience. Mm-hmm. Or the first sign might be a stroke. We see people who they've had a stroke and they never knew they had atrial fibrillation, and then because they have it and it goes away, and they didn't, it wasn't picked up. So then we'll put a monitor on, and then sometimes now we have a loop recorder, which is put under the skin. It measures your heart rate constantly, your heart rhythm for 3 or 4 years. And sometimes people have had a stroke, we put those in, and then we'll find out that they did have an episode of atrial fibrillation. Now we need to put them on a blood thinner to prevent another stroke.
Wow. But the key point I think that we can probably all agree it comes back to is if something's not right, call 911 and seek help when your body, it's different, right? Especially in women, as we said in the beginning, women tend to say, well, you know what, it'll go away, or it's just because I'm this or that, right?
No, you need to have it attended to right away because you want to see what the rhythm is and you want to treat it. Absolutely. It's not something to ignore. Again, it can just be an uncomfortable sensation. I just don't feel right. And if somebody's not listening to you when you're describing those things, you need to definitely get help and make sure someone's paying attention to you. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the symptoms are just like, oh, well, they're just stressed. But no, you got to pay attention. And sometimes you can have fast heart rhythm where they just suddenly go fast. But I had patients who in the past were told that they're depressed and anxious, especially, women, because I mean, women, I mean, they're all depressed and anxious, right? So they told them gave them a antidepressant. And I was like, I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious. And then I evaluated her, and she was having SVT, supraventricular tachycardia, which is a fast rhythm coming from the upper chamber of the heart. So we had that ablated, and she's fine. And she's now, can I stop my antidepressant? Yeah, because you never were depressed. You had a heart rhythm problem. So a lot of time people are, women especially, are treated like it's in their head, they're stressed, and it's actually a heart rhythm problem. So those are the type of things, especially, that's why I see tons of patients with palpitations, because a lot of times they're not paid attention to, so they come to me, and that's probably the most common thing I see.
And that, unfortunately, it is still happening, where there is this disparity of women presenting and some physicians not evaluating them from not just a biological, but a physiological symptom as well.
Exactly. Yes. Or like even asking them, like, okay, how much alcohol are you drinking? How much caffeine are you drinking? And really going, how much water do you drink? Say, oh, I have 2 cups a day, and they're like 300 pounds. I'm like, that's not enough. You need to be drinking over a gallon a day. I mean, for 300 pounds, it's 150 ounces. And, oh, okay. And then they feel much better. I mean, things like that. You really need to help treat the symptoms, but also to diagnose what it is. Mm-hmm. And atrial fibrillation is very important to diagnose, especially in older people, or people that are, young people, okay, it's still important to diagnose, but as you get older, the risk of stroke goes up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, important thing we tell people is be an advocate for yourself as well. So yes. If you still continue to kind of experience, or you have a physician that maybe you feel didn't take it to the right level of what, kind of appeases your stress levels or anything, that, ask for a second opinion, right? I mean, that's okay. Right?
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Got another thing here, again, going on the heart a lot of people asking about heart palpitations. So this person said their daughter's having heart palpitations, and the doctor has her seeing an endocrinologist. Can you talk to the thyroid connection in the heart?
If you have hyperthyroidism, you can develop atrial fibrillation. And also your heart rate will be higher if you have hyperthyroidism. I actually just had a patient who suddenly felt her heart. She had delivered a baby like 6 months ago, and she suddenly felt her heart really pounding, going fast. She was very uncomfortable, and she was sent to see me. In the meantime, she had thyroid functions tests, so she is hyperthyroid, and that would be the cause of it. But obviously, we're going to check everything else and make sure her heart's okay, because hyperthyroidism can affect the heart muscle. And I want to make sure she's in a normal rhythm that's fast, and make sure it's not atrial fibrillation. And then we watch her closely. But definitely hyperthyroidism, and which is very common in the Western New York area. There's something here with there's either Graves' disease or Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism or hyperthyroid. But thyroid disease is very common in Western New York. So we see a lot of it. And you can develop it, like this person, after you had a baby, any acute stress on your body, you can suddenly develop it. You get a thyroiditis, and your thyroid will get, so that a lot of those patients will present with palpitations. And adjusting the medications right. If you're hypothyroid, they put you on medication to replete the thyroid. Sometimes you'll get palpitations with that as they're trying to adjust it and get it to the right level.
Wow. So a question about hypertension diagnosis. So a lot of people are diagnosed hypertensive by just their general physician. At what point is a cardiologist brought into the mix?
Well, I mean, I see patients for hypertension by themselves. Certainly if the patient feels they want a cardiologist managing it, sometimes the primary care doctor, they don't always know the current recommendations and are not putting them on the appropriate medications, or they're on a lot of different medications and they're not getting anywhere. Patients will say, I want to see a cardiologist, but I see patients who come to me with high blood pressure, and that's what I treat. In the past, we used to use, some people used medications called beta blockers, which slow your heart rate down and can make you tired and have a lot of symptoms. And it's no longer one of the recommendations, unless you're really at the bottom of the list now. But I see a lot of patients who are on huge doses of that because their primaries haven't kept up with the guidelines. and it doesn't control the blood pressure, and they can feel very tired. So there are some medications that, that's our expertise, is we know how to control it. So certainly if there's any question with the primary care doctor, I mean, if it's controlled by one medication and you're fine, you don't necessarily have to see someone. But there's also the thing where if you have a family history, your cholesterol is high, you have high blood pressure, you probably want to see a cardiologist because you've got a lot of risk factors. So I see a lot of patients who just come to me by themselves. They self-refer themselves because they're worried about their heart, and a cardiologist, again, will get, like if you have a thyroid problem, well, your primary can sort of treat it a little bit. You see an endocrinologist is boom, 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 this is what we need, but it is controlled very quickly. Same with blood pressure. I mean, that's what cardiologists do. So it can easily, get your blood pressure controlled quickly. If someone puts you on a medication and tells you to come back in 6 months, that's your blood pressure is not going to be controlled. I bring them back in a couple of weeks. I start something, bring it back, and then in 6 months, you've already been controlled for 4 months. I mean, so it should be treated, and it should be treated right away. So it's very important that, again, aggressive treatment, get that blood pressure down. And I see some patients who are just sort of following it. It's still high, and treat it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you lose weight and get the exercise and it goes low, I can always stop the medication. But I'm not going to leave it high and have you have a stroke and when your blood pressure is high, you're doing damage to your arteries and in your heart and your brain. So, you treat it, and then you change your lifestyle. We can gradually pull away the medications. I have no problem with that, but we don't want it running high.
Yeah, that actually is my story. I was on lisinopril every day. I was officially diagnosed at 37 years old, and family history. And I said, hey, this is probably just my time, right? Genetics. But then I said, I'm not getting regular exercise. And actually 6 months later, I came off my hypertension medication because I was managing it actually through physical activity.
Yes.
So it can be done.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can get your cholesterol down, you get your blood pressure down, you get off all your diabetic medications, weight loss, exercise, diet. That's the key part of everything I do. That's what I spend most of my time on. I diagnose and treat, but now the patient has to take it into their hands, and that's extremely important.
Right. So probably last question here, and it has to do actually with COVID and COVID diagnoses. Have you seen a lot of tachycardia after COVID diagnosis, and does that normally go away?
Yes, I have seen it. Especially, I'm seeing a lot of younger people, like maybe they're going back to college and they want to play sports, so I have to clear them, or they're worried because they're reading everything on the internet where they're going to die from their heart because they had COVID, which is fine. A lot of it's anxiety that their heart rate's high, but also it's their oxygen saturation might be a little bit low because they were sick, so your heart rate's going to be higher. You're also deconditioned, and you were sick, which any illness would cause your heart rate to be higher afterwards. If you have the flu, your heart rate's going to be high. Now we're just more sensitive to it, but definitely it does go away. Again, it's drinking tons of fluid and getting back to your activities eventually, but it does go away.
Have you seen any other common symptoms that are kind of lagging effects of people who had COVID?
This weird sort of chest pain, especially a lot of young people, because again, they're worried, but yeah, it's just sort of it aches in the chest and it's just coming, and they can be all the time, and just weird sort of chest pain that it's not associated with activity, just very uncomfortable. And it feels like it's up here, and it's just, and it eventually just goes away. It's just kind of there. And people have this trouble, like, and they're all saying the same type of thing. It's just sort of weird, and it feels like it's in my chest, but it's here. And then they get worried that it could be the heart, which obviously we check the heart and make sure. I do an echocardiogram, make sure the muscle of the heart's strong, make sure there's been no damage to the heart. And if we need to, we do a stress test depending upon the situation. And then the heart rates, sometimes we'll do a monitor for 24 hours just to make sure there's nothing else going on, because it could have triggered some atrial fibrillation or other type of heart rhythms. But generally, it eventually does get better.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Cobbler. Amazing responses in chat, a lot of thank yous, so many questions. You know, we just appreciate your time, and I know you got to get back to treating all those patients there. But, you know, thank you to the audience for joining us. Best thing you could do is pass this information on. Tell someone what you learned today. Be an advocate for women's health. Wear your red, post it on social media, and let us know how we can help you in your pursuit of a longer, healthier life. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cobbler.
Bye.